a new chef knife I have from SHANZU. They did send it to me, and you know, it's still perfectly sharp. It's got a factory edge on it. So very sharp, but it's not quite, even though it's very sharp, most people would consider this just fine. There's no reason to really sharpen it. I'm gonna cut off the edge, but it's not quite up to my standards. So right here is the paper towel cutting test, and you'll notice, see how it's slipping off? And this is what I always talk about, where the paper towel cut test shows you, or can show you, a perfect sharpened edge. Let me see where we're at. Sorry, I think this thing started kind of late. What's going on? Anyways, so it's not sharp enough to cut this paper towel. I can kind of force it to, but you see how it's sliding? It's slipping off of the cuts, which is what I always talk about, is that in order to cut a paper towel cleanly, the knife has to have two things. One, a high level of sharpness, and number two, it has to have bite. So it can have a high level of sharpness with no bite, and it will do this. It'll just slip off of the cut. So what we want is, we want it to bite right into it and start cutting initially. So this is still sharp. Like I said, most people, this would be just fine. And this would be, you know, perfectly up to most people's standards, but not to mine. So I want to make it my own, make my own sharpened edge, so that I can ensure that it is very, very sharp. I have a stone here. This is a resin bonded diamond stone. We're gonna cut that edge right off, just to show you guys that, you know, I'm gonna sharpen all the way down to the apex, because let's say if I left it, you know, with the apex, I could technically sharpen it and never hit the apex, and, you know, it technically wouldn't be doing anything, because without your scratch pattern hitting the apex, you're not doing anything. You have to cut in the bevel all the way to the apex. And this is where some people fall short, is they'll go on the stone, they'll start sharpening, and what they're not doing is they're not looking at their scratch pattern and seeing how far they've gotten, because that is the time. Your scratch pattern will tell you how much longer you have. If your scratch pattern is at the top of the bevel up here, up here, but not at the apex, so it hasn't hit the part that cuts you, and it's really close, because an edge bevel is very small. So if the scratches are at the top of the bevel but haven't reached the apex yet, you haven't redone the edge. You have not hit the edge bevel. Or sorry, you've hit the edge bevel, but you haven't hit the apex. So I have a 140 Atoma here. This is a diamond plate. This is what we're going to start on. This is a great reprofiling stone. I would never finish on this stone. I mean, you could if you're out in the field and you had to, but this is super aggressive. Like, this leaves like a sawtooth edge. But because I'm only using it as my first stone, in order to sharpen faster, if you guys have ever sharpened and you've been on the stone for like an hour and you're like, what is going on? It's still not sharp. Well, your stone probably isn't aggressive enough. And a lot of people online teaching knife sharpening will lead you to believe that you need to start at like a medium grit, a 600, a 1000, which is absolutely bonkers. You always start at a very coarse stone, 300 grit or lower. Like, this is 140, in order for the process of cutting in the bevel to go fast. So we have the Atoma 140. We have our sand mine. Basically, it's like a, I don't know, maybe it's not sand mine. It's some sort of Damascus. I'm sorry, not some sort. It's a Damascus made out of AUS 10. So it's basically like a VG10, which is really good. Actually, some of the best chef knives on the planet are made out of VG10. So this is a quality chef knife. This is one I would absolutely recommend, because it's not made of pot metal steel. This is made of real knife steel. This is AUS 10, VG10. VG10 originally comes from Japan. It's a Japanese made steel for chef knives. And an AUS 10 and VG10, AUS 10 and 10CR are all basically the same. So we are going to cut in the bevel. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to worry about what my angle is so much. I'm really good at getting my angle. I'm just going to get it around a good area. So let's say this is 90 degrees. Right, straight up and down. If I cut that in half from the spine to the stone, That's that would be, so this is 90, this is 45. So if I cut that in half again, so I went from 90 degrees, 45, cut in half again, that's 22.5. I'm gonna go a little bit lower than that, which will be right around 17 degrees per side, maybe 20. It's not that big of a deal. You can get really nitpicky and do a precise angle, which is fine, but you don't have to. The most important part is just that whatever angle you pick, you stick to it, you hold it. So right here's my angle. I'm just gonna kind of naturally let my wrist tell me where I want it. You don't wanna go too low and you don't wanna go too high. That's kind of the idea. You don't wanna go too high and you don't wanna go too low. You want kind of right there in the middle. So I'm gonna naturally grip the knife and I'm gonna let the heel of the blade hit the stone. That's where I start. Now from there, I'm gonna take this hand and I'm going to let my thumb hit just like that, and I'm gonna kind of use it as an angle indicator and make sure I don't feel this happening, because we want to be able to go straight across without lifting or without dropping. So we want to hold this angle all the way across. When we get to the belly to hit the tip, we just lift our elbow. So we never move this, we only move this. So lock this in, literally lock it in. Bam, it's on the stone. Right now, I'm not gonna move my wrist at all. I'm just going to lift my elbow to get to the tip. And now I can do this back and forth. So my elbow's up right now. You can't see it, but I drop it back down. If you wanna see it like this, you can kind of lean in and lean out if you want to, but that's how I'm going to make sure I can set my bevel, make sure that it's nice and flat. I had a chisel here I wanted to show you guys. I guess I did something with it, I don't remember. But think about like a chisel. Like a chisel has a flat bevel going down to a sharp apex. That's basically what you're cutting in, is the same idea, but just from heel to tip. So lock my wrist, got my angle. You can hear the stone's aggressive, or plate, I should say. Now there's a few different types of diamond stones out there. Diamond plates are gonna be the most affordable for diamonds, but they're also going to not last the longest. The more expensive ones, they last longer. That's kind of the idea. And then very cheap ones, the diamonds wear off really fast, like very fast. So you have to replace them quickly. That's kind of, so like if you don't have the money to spend on an expensive one, you can get a cheap one. It's just gonna wear out quick. And you also might lead to where it's not as aggressive as it says. It'll say 300 and really it's like a 500. But I can see my scratch patterns looking really, really good. This is a stone that makes for light work because it cuts so fast. Like this is a stone that's like doing 10 passes for one pass on another stone because it's so aggressive. But like I said, that also means I wouldn't use this as a finishing stone because my teeth would just be way too aggressive. Let's see what you guys are saying. How's everybody doing? Just dropping in to say, hey, working for the man. Gotta work, gotta work. Yeah, so anybody who's a member in here, tomorrow we're going to do the members live giveaway. We're probably not, I don't know if we're going to do a sharpening or not, but we're going to do, because I have to make up for the giveaway because Easter it would have landed on, and you know, I wasn't going to do it on Easter, you know, so we're going to do it tomorrow. We'll do it really quickly. I just got in all the knives for that giveaway. Not the giveaway for the members, but the giveaway that's open to anybody. 20 knives, and I'm gonna add in another knife too. Yeah, it's pretty badass. Plus that big ass case. Now, the giveaway we're gonna do tomorrow, I don't know, we'll probably give away 3 knives or something to the members. And just make sure that you're there. If you are a member, it'll be sometime during the day. Now, I did think about doing it, actually, maybe we should do it at night because people are at work. That's the problem, is that, you know, it's hard to be able to get on every member's schedule, but it'll be sometime tomorrow. I wanted to do it during the day, but now that I think about it, I might have to do it at night. It's just going to be a quick giveaway, maybe an hour show. Give you guys enough time to get there and enter the giveaway and win some badass knives. And then the next one we'll pick up on the live sharpening. So if you don't know, if you want to become a member, we do live sharpening twice a month for the members where, you know, it's more limited. So there's less people there. So it's easier to communicate, talk, answer questions. And I offer doing live personally, not live, but doing a one-on-one with the top tier members if they ever need help. It'd just be me and you. So one thing I noticed right now is the grind is a little, which is normal. It's a little wonky. Right here is thinner than it is right here. So the bevel is going to be smaller here than it is right here. So it goes super thin to a little bit thicker, and then up at the tip, it gets a little bit thicker. So the bevel is going to basically go from smaller to bigger as it gets to the tip, but it's going to start off really tiny and then get bigger. And it's just, you know, a misgrind or whatever. Not a big deal. It's a chef knife. Nobody will ever notice it. It's not going to change anything about cutting or anything like that. Jared, I have a problem holding an angle. Part of the blade is, let's say, 25 degrees and the tips are at 17. Is it just time and practice? So yes, but what you're doing is you're dipping. So one thing is that just because your bevel goes from thinner to thicker doesn't mean you're changing angles. That could be the thickness of the grind. That is very common. Like I just said with this one, that's exactly what's happening. The tip's going to be bigger. However, what's probably happening to you is you're going like this. You're going across the stone, and when you get to this, you're going like this. I used to do it all the time. So you're coming across the stone like this, and you're going, you're dipping like that, which is common. It's common to do. And when you become a pro, you are going to do that sometimes. But right now, don't do that. Focus on locking it in. Focus on your elbow, go across the stone, and when you get to the tip, just lift up. And if you have to, you can put your finger, your pointer finger right at the tip, and as it comes across, you can lift and allow your finger to touch the stone, which will tell you your tip touched the stone. Frank, thank you. Thank you for becoming a member, man. Welcome to the Benchmates. Tomorrow, make sure you put the notifications on so you can show up to the members live tomorrow, the members live giveaway. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I do try to, like, if somebody wins something they already have, just tell me you already have it and I'll switch it to something else. I've said that a lot. I know some of the members might not know that, but I've said it in a lot of giveaways like that. If I give you something and you're like, I already have that, just tell me. I'll give you something else. It's not like we're running short of things to give away. Fuck, I need to sell a lot of shit. All right, so we're looking really good, but like I said, because of the grind difference, right? Anytime you have thinner and thicker, the thick areas are going to take longer than the thin areas. So you might have a burr, like I do, from all the way up. I have a burr from here all the way up to the tip, actually. I can feel it. It's a little bit smaller right here, even though it's thinner right there. It's kind of weird, just a little wonky. But the tip is not hit. And you can actually see it if you really, really look. The scratches are not, see how it's shiny at that tip? Because the scratches haven't hit it. So I just have to work on that area a little bit more. I can work on it by itself like this, but I want to regain my angle. So make sure I keep going back and then blending it in. Anytime you do like a pass like this, or a pass like this, where you're working on a specific spot, blend it in. So if you do 3 to 5, you know, like passes by itself in a specific spot, do about 10 or 15 to blend it in. Otherwise, what'll happen is you'll have a different angle there because you're gonna have some subtle changes in angle, which is just fine. Our burr's pretty big. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to cut it off. I'm gonna do this side really quick and then we'll come back to this side because I don't want my burr, I don't wanna work on one side entirely way too long, especially after I have a burr. Once you have a burr, this edge is just fine. Like even if I sharpen this other side and say the tip wasn't perfectly hit, it's not gonna matter. But I'm gonna try to get it as good as I can. But throughout 2, 3, 4 sharpenings, any imperfections will come out. Okay, so all I'm doing right there is one, I want to get the burr out of the way so that I can come across the stone without the burr hitting the stone and preventing me from doing a pass. But more importantly is I'm knocking the burr over so that it's now on, because it was on this side and now I just knocked it over back over to this side. So now the burr is on this side and I can feel it. And it's one, out of the way, but two, this is going to give me the ability to fatigue the burr through the sharpening so that when I get to my final stone, it'll be much easier to remove. Is this mandatory or a must? No, but if the burr is, say, on this side like this, and I just go cranking into it, I have the potential to do micro tear out, to have a little bit of issues at the apex because I'm tearing the burr off aggressively, which is not good. You want to let it kind of naturally come off, or either one, slowly remove it, or two, fatigue it until it pops off. Now, if it's just the first stone, it's not that big of a deal because I'm going to go through other stones and create, you know, a new burr, but I still like to do it through all the stones. So, same thing, I was on this side, I'm going to try to basically hit it. You know, I'm really good at going, say, this angle and then matching it up. I'm pretty good at that. But if you're not, what you want to do is you want to, one, lock your wrist where it naturally feels, kind of like you did on this side. Get it around the right area, and then give it a pass. Give it a couple passes, and then look at it and see, where does my scratches hit? And see if they're right around the same height as your other side. And you might have to do a few extra passes just to reassure. And once you see, like, that's about right, you know, it might not be 100% perfect, but you haven't spent a lot of time in the stone, so it's okay. You're gonna wind up getting there. So as long as it's right around that area and it looks pretty good, then continue working on it. And then in a few minutes, if we need to adjust, we can, but right now I'm locking my wrist and I'm using my elbow and my body to pull backwards. And when I want to get to the tip, I raise my elbow, because we have two different angles. You have your edge angle, which is this angle. Then you have your the shape of the blade. So in order to get to the tip, I lift my elbow. So if I'm coming across the stone like this, I just lift my elbow to get to the tip. I don't want to change this. Lock this thing in. All right, sorry, just wanted to know what time you're live tomorrow and how I can participate. Frank from the north. Well, Frank, you are a member, so all you have to do is just show up. Any members, just show up, and you're going to participate. Just be there. And I'm not sure the exact time. I guess let's shoot. I say I want to do it. Well, yeah, you'll get a notification 30 minutes before. Make sure they should, but make sure anybody who is a member, or if you just want to know when I post shit or when I'm going live, or if you want to be involved in the huge giveaway coming up, hit the notification bell. But tomorrow, I wanted to do it during the day, but I might wait till people are off of work, like 4:30, 5 o'clock. So maybe we'll do it like, 5:30, 6 or something, make sure everybody's off. I do have a scheduled phone call, possibly. Well, me and Home and Hadfield are going to do a live talking about the giveaway we're doing the day before the giveaway. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go live. We're going to talk about it. We're going to show everything. And then we're going to tell you guys, hey, tomorrow at this and this time is when we are doing the giveaway. And then 1 week after I post that video, so you guys will have 1 week to enter the giveaway. After that, I will be drawing it, and I will tell you the time I'm going to do pulling the names. We already have a burr. This side actually went really quick, and the bevel actually matches up really well. The heel it's good on this side, not on this side. Then this tip is actually thinner on this side and thicker on this side. This is common. This is probably a hand ground knife, which is just fine. There's nothing wrong with it. You're going to see imperfections, right? So, and because this is the type of Damascus it is with this hammered finish and all that, you're going to have some imperfections. I'm not worried about that. I'm going to go to the tip right now and work on it just a little bit. It is thinner, so it's going to be easier to get. Like I said, anything thinner will go faster and be easier. Thicker is always more troublesome. Now, That's one issue why a lot of people, when they learn how to sharpen, they'll grab like the thickest knife in their collection and try to sharpen it, which is just, don't do that. Don't even attempt to sharpen a thick knife. A lot of fixed blades, don't. Like, unless if it's like a thin chef knife or a thin kitchen knife, go as thin as possible. Not so thin that it's bendy. You want something that's stable so you can feel, you know, the blade shape. Because when they bend, that's actually can be a little bit more difficult. But the thinner, the better. Okay, so I'm going to flip my burr again, like I said, making sure that I'm fatiguing it. So now it's flipped over to this side most of the way, very gentle. And I'm trying to do this at the same angle I sharpened at least as much as possible. I'm just gonna hit this side one more time just to get this tip a little bit more, and whatever doesn't come out in a few passes, I'm just gonna save to the next sharpening. And I recommend doing that because as a sharpener, it is, how can I say this? It is not professional to remove steel from 98% of the edge to hit 2%. If you have 2% that is not being hit because of grind issues or whatever, wait till the next sharpening. Get it as sharp as you can, and then just save it to the next one, because all you're doing is removing steel that is the life of the knife for 2%. For this little time that won't matter, that you can just see. That's all it is. You can see it. It's not going to affect your cutting. It's not going to affect anything else. So I'm done with this side. I'm going to move on to my resin bonded diamond stones now. These are very expensive. These are Veneve Dragons. They're hard to recommend because they are very expensive. They are my favorite stones, and to me, I consider them not only an asset, but they're kind of a prized possession, to be honest, because they are expensive, but they last so long. However, I have a new company stones that we are working with right now. They are going to be making me some big stones too for freehand, but right now I'm testing their fixed angled stones. These seem very promising. They are 3 times as thick. So however long most Veneves last with the 1 millimeter thickness, they're 3 millimeters. So they're going to last like 3 times as long, or supposedly. We're going to see. Okay, so with the resin bonded, I do use soapy water. With diamond plates, you run them dry. You do not need any lubrication. You can rinse them off under the sink and then dry them off, but make sure you dry them off because they can rust. This is resin bonded, so there's a resin that has diamonds mixed throughout the resin. You know, like a chocolate chip cookie, the chocolate chips in the cookie, it's like that. So the resin is, you know, covering the stone, and some of them have an abrasive in that too, but the diamonds are what's the abrasive, and most of them are all diamond. So I want to put the soapy water in order to lift the particles off of the stones and the pores in the stones. So now, like, I have the burr, I flipped it over to this side. So now I'm going to finish, oh no, sorry, I finished on this side. So I have to flip it this way. Very gentle. When I do that, I'm doing no pressure at all. When I sharpen, I'll tell you how much pressure, but no pressure when you're doing anything with the burr, anything at all. Whether you're removing it, fatiguing it, or flipping it, no pressure. It doesn't need any pressure. It's literally, you can almost do it with your fingers. I mean, not quite, it's a little too hard for that, but damn near. Are you going to use soapy water before what? Tunneling us? Jared, will you do a sharpening stream / video on the stroppy stuff honing oil for resin bonded metallic bond? I will, but I don't see no purpose, but yeah, I can. I'll ask them to send it. I use soapy water, and what's funny is this new company, I did that on my own, just to be honest. Nobody told me to use soapy water. I started doing it because one of the sharpeners that I learned from used to use soapy water on some of their oil stones, but only if they had never used oil. So if they had never used oil, they would use soapy water. And so I got that trick from them. When I got to the resin bonded diamonds, I used regular water, and I noticed that the stone was still kind of clogging up more than I wanted. So I thought, like, why don't I try soapy water? And I did, and it worked great, like super good. I heard other people saying that they use a very light oil. But soapy water, in my opinion, is the better way to go. Now, if they've developed some sort of oil or some sort of thing to use on the stove, cool. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with getting it or using it if it works. But if soapy water works, I guarantee it's more affordable. How do you maintain your resin bonded diamond stone? So you want to get, there's different sizes. Like I have big ones of these. I even have giant ones like this. So you take, do I have it out here? No, I have it put up. You take a, I like to recommend, oh, what are they called? Oh, I can't even think of the name of them. I linked them in the store. If you go down to the Neeves Knives store with sharpening supplies, it's just an aluminum oxide stone. And you basically just go like this. And all it does is the diamonds are sticking out of the stone. Let's say this is the stone, the resin, the diamonds poke up. Eventually they wear down, right? So now they're below the surface. So what you're doing is you're cutting the resin off until the diamonds are exposed again. That's what you're doing. So you do this every once in a while, every few sharpenings, just to bring out the diamonds. And it also helps flatten it to keep it nice and flat. Now these are super, super hard and dense. So they don't really dish out like other stones. Like other stones will dish out like 50 times faster than this. But every once in a while, you might have to flatten it. Now you can do that with a big aluminum oxide stone, just like I'm doing right now, just with a bigger stone. Or two, get silicon carbide powder, which is what I do. Put it on a piece of glass and then just rub it around on the silicon carbide powder with some water. But if you're just using one of these little conditioning stones, you can get a good, a bigger one like this big for like 12 bucks. But that's what I do. Now that's what you're supposed to do, but you can get basically any size. Just don't use anything diamond. Make sure it's aluminum oxide, silicon carbide, something like that. And then, in the future, if you do need to flatten it, you can buy the stuff at that point. But in many cases, as long as you're conditioning it, you'll be just fine. Does anyone know a reliable knife slash company that will ship to England? Try just one of the dealers. I have them all linked down in the description. Try Blade HQ and try GP Knives. Those are two that I would recommend probably the most. Okay, so we flipped the burr. Now we are going to sharpen this side. By the way, we went from an Atoma, which I have linked down in the description, in the Neeves Knives store and sharpening supplies. There's the NEEVEKNIVECO and the Neeves Knives store. The Neeves Knives store is an Amazon store, and I have all kinds of sharpening supplies that I recommend that I use. So the Atomas, this is Atoma, this is a 140. Then we moved to the Neeve resin bonded. This is basically like a 300 grit. So it went from 140 to 300, even though it doesn't say it's 300. They use microns. It's not made in the US, it's made in Russia, so it goes by their grit standards. These new ones I have are made in Ukraine that we are testing and doing a video on very soon. Man, that scratch pattern looks damn good. All right, so the heel right here has not really hit the apex really well as much as I would like. I'm just gonna mess with it just a little bit. See if I can't cut it in and then blend it. So I just did all those passes, now I have to blend it. Sometimes, now this is a pro trick, so if you're not good at sharpening, don't do this yet. But when you start getting good and you have a little problem at the heel, what you can do is when you're coming across the stone, you can just add a little pressure downward like this. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to allow you to cut in the heel a little bit. Now, not a lot of pressure because just a little bit will matter. So a little bit of pressure downward as you're going across. So I'm dropping and going, dropping and going. But that's literally that's like a pro trick when you're good at holding the angle already. If you're not good at holding the angle perfectly, don't even worry about that yet. Okay, so we are good pretty much. I have a little bit of convexing, but I need to get to this side because I'm working on this side a little too long right now. And we'll flatten it up on the next one. Flipping the burr, no pressure. Okay, so how much pressure do you use when sharpening, right? If you use no pressure for anything to do with the burr, how much pressure do you use when you're sharpening? I say a couple pounds if you want to know like poundage. Now it's very difficult. How do you estimate how many pounds you're pushing? Well, just put some pressure. Don't focus on how much because it's not important. You can put as much pressure as you want or as little as you want. If you use a little bit of pressure, it's still going to cut, but not as fast as if you put a lot of pressure. However, if you put a lot of pressure, you're more likely to mess your angle up. So that's why you want to put just enough to where you have no problems going across the stone at a good angle. So you have no problems holding it and getting across the stone with that angle. And you basically just want to make sure, you put enough pressure that you feel the abrasive cutting into the steel, which you'll be able to, kind of like sandpaper, right? When you sand something down, you feel the grit getting into whatever you're sanding. Locking my wrist, just using my elbow. Check my angles really quick, make sure my bevels are about even. They don't have to be 100% perfect, but they are damn close, and that's what you want. Spelling and grammar drama, this is the way. I prefer attend live reserved to members, so have a nice day. No problem, Lauren, that'll be tomorrow. I'm not sure if you heard me, but tomorrow we will be doing one, but it's not gonna be a sharpening. We're gonna do the live giveaway and then follow up with the sharpening on the next one. Because we got to do this giveaway. You know, I promised 2 giveaways a month. Just because there was a holiday doesn't mean we get out of that. Flipping the burr. But I'm going to the next stone. So I could have just flipped it on this stone, it didn't matter. But now I'm going to recreate it again because say if my burr pops off, right? That's fine. I'm going to redevelop it as I go through the stones anyways. And yes, you want to make sure you get a burr with each stone. Now, the thing is once you've developed your first burr, the second stone, you might be able to just do a couple passes and you'll feel the burr already on the other side. So make sure you're paying attention to the scratch pattern, not just the burr. The burr is one factor. Yes, you have to make sure you get a burr, but 2, you have to make sure your scratch pattern has replaced the old scratch pattern. The first stone, you make sure the scratches go down to the apex. All the stones after that, you make sure that they are replaced. They are replacing the old scratch pattern. Making sure they go from heel to tip, from the top of the bevel down to the apex. Heel to tip, top of the bevel down to the apex. You notice I'm kind of moving my body just a little bit. Yeah, that's looking great. Yeah, that's nice and flat, at least relatively flat. If it has a little bit of convexing, that's okay. It'll only toughen up the edge. In fact, I think the best edge you could ever put on a knife is a semi-convexed. So not, like this would be a convexed, this would be a V-grind, a semi-convex where it's just slightly. Hey, B, thank you for the 2 Caracas. Sexy knife. Yes, it is. It's a very sexy knife. Look at that handle. Beautiful handle. The hammered finish. The blade steel is AUS 10. All right, I'm just going to cut it in just a little bit better. And then I'm going to lock it in really good here. And here I'm going to concentrate because I'm getting through my stones now. So the more I move up to the finer stones, the less likely it's going to be that I'm going to be able to flatten my edge bevel out. You make sure all your flattening and your bevel is set by the coarser stones so that the finer stones, because they're not going to cut fast, they're only going to replace the scratch pattern. They're not going to really remove any steel or anything. So you want to make sure all the steel that you need to remove is done with the first or second stone. By the second stone at least, but you want to do everything with the first stone, and then the second stone kind of cleans anything up, as long as it's still very coarse. Flip the burr, work on this side, then we'll switch stones. Again, I want to make sure I am holding my angle as perfect as possible. I'll let my fingers slide. So like I'm not putting any pressure with these. If I need to work on one spot, I might very gently put pressure, but it's so gentle you wouldn't even notice. And then the blade is wet, right? So I'm letting it kind of just glide through my fingers so that I can, one, feel that my angle is not moving. I can feel it because if I go like this, I can feel it. If I go down, I can feel it. So I'm feeling the angle and I'm touching it with the stone and the blade at the same time, and I'm letting it kind of glide. This is something that you get through muscle memory and practice, and it will eventually become super natural to you. And if anybody's out there, a cook or a chef or something like that, this is, you know, something that that's a must. I would say it's a must for every man to learn, but especially if you work with knives, like tools, anything like that. Like if you, even like a construction worker, you better know how to sharpen, or at least have an idea and then learn. And the reason why I say that is because in order to have proper tools, you want to have one, quality tools, but number two, tools that are maintainable. So for an example, right? Say if you're a woodworker, you wouldn't get a cheap chisel set because you're planning on using those chisels for 20 years, right? So you want to make sure that the steel and heat treatment on that steel is good quality so that you can resharpen it over and over and over and over, and you want to get good at it, whether it's even saw blades and things like that. So we're moving to the Veneve 240, which is basically like a 600 grit. It's supposed to be like a little bit more aggressive than that, but it's not. I can put it right next to a 600 grit diamond edge, and that's what it is. How do I know I have the correct angle? Well, you don't have to focus on it too much. Just be close enough. Now, if you're trying to do the exact same angle that's on the knife already, then you just look at the scratches. When you go across the stone, look at it and see if it's hit the top of the bevel. So you want to make sure the scratches start at the top and work their way down. You don't start at the bottom and work your way up. You start at the top of the edge bevel and work your way down to the apex. Now, if you're not like worried about having the exact same angle, you just want to sharpen your knife up, then it's not that big of a deal. What's the big deal is that you hold it. Now, there is a range that you need to be in, 17 to 22, 23, maybe 25 degrees. You want to be in that range, which will be just like this. 90 degrees, cut it in half, 45 degrees, cut that in half, 22.5. So right there is good, or a little bit lower or a little bit higher. So that's a range. And then hold it. Don't worry about whether or not it's like, is it exactly 17 degrees? Is it exactly 22.5? Who cares? Hold it. Make sure you're holding it, because when your edge bevel is set, that's what's going to be important, you know. Now, in the future, yes, you can be a little bit more picky about the angle and make sure that it's, you know, an exact degree and all of that. Now I'm flipping the burr again, very gentle. I'm just letting the apex, I'm basically stropping on the stone. That's the idea. And it's just to take the burr and flip it over to this side, because it was on this side. Now it's over here. Remember, sharpening a knife and understanding sharpening, you have to understand the burr. The burr, you will never get to a sharp edge without understanding the burr. And basically the burr is just your scratch pattern goes from it's basically just your scratch pattern goes from the top of the bevel down to the apex. And then when you get to the apex, it's going to be a little wire like that, just a little wire. And then when you work on this side, it's going to flip it over to this side. When you work on this side, it's going to flip it over to this side. And then in the end, you fatigue it until it pops off, or until it slowly breaks down and breaks off. That way you reveal a perfect apex. But just sharpening a knife, like people just, you know, it's just people not understanding how to sharpen. They'll sharpen, right? And they'll wonder like, why is this not getting sharper? Right? Well, because you have to develop a burr and you have to remove the burr. If you don't remove the burr, it won't matter. If you don't develop a burr, it doesn't matter. But the scratch pattern is how you determine that. You watch it. You can see the scratches. They start at the top and you'll watch them go all the way down. Sometimes you'll see them only halfway down. You'll be like, okay, well, I'm halfway done now. I need to work on it twice as long. I got myself the Work Sharp Elite grind from Ken Onion. I got one of those, and I like to make a little finish with whetstone, high grit 4000, and a little strop. The stones are like a meditation. Yeah, I like to think of it as very therapeutic myself. I think that this is a great therapy for men or women, you know, it doesn't matter, but I think it's like kind of ingrained in men's DNA to you know, to sharpen your blades, sharpen your edges, and to make sure that they're at a high level. And I just think there's something that's internal in us that wants that. So I think learning it is one therapeutic, but then being able to do it is just, it's incredible. So we worked on this side, the burr's on this side, or shit, we flipped it. So flip the burr. Let me just, my burr's getting a little bit smaller now because I am going down to finer stones and some of it has tore off, so it's not as big as it was. And if I finished on the other side, it's not that big of a deal, as long as I develop a burr on each stone on both sides. So I'm pretty sure I finished the other stone on this side. Now, I'm not sure how high we're gonna bring this. I thought about bringing it to a mirror polish. I normally, for a chef knife, would stop between 600 and 1200 grit, but there's sometimes I like to bring it up to a mirror polish. Just depends on the steel. This being VG10, VG10 will take a good mirror polished, and it holds it okay, but it doesn't hold it as long as it holds a medium grit from my experience. Now it will depend on what you're cutting and things like that. This is a chef knife. I know it's cutting food, so I know I want two things, a high level of sharpness and a high level of bite. Without one of the two, it doesn't work. Like I showed you on the paper towel at the very beginning of this, the edge was slipping off of it. Even though it was a brand new edge, it just wasn't up to my standards because one, yes, it would cut paper cleanly, but it would not cut paper towel. I want to make sure it cuts paper towel, which will tell me if I have a strawberry or whatever I'm cutting and I barely touch it, my edge is going to bite into it and not slip off. Because like if you can take a tomato and run your edge across it without it cutting into it, your edge is slick. Have you tried the Sharple double-sided diamond stones? I'm sure I have. I've tried a lot of their stuff. Yeah, I would say that's fine. You can use that. You just, anything, as long as it's diamond plates, you can use those. That's fine. Now, the thing is, though, is that the cheaper you go and the more affordable you go, in most cases, the faster they will wear out, or the less aggressive they will be and they won't cut very fast. So that's why sometimes you don't have to spend the extreme amount of money, but you should try to spend a little bit more than the bottom of the barrel so that you can at least get decent stones that'll cut fast and last. I've got some that 3-4 sharpenings in, the diamonds have wore off. Not all the way off, I can still use them, but they've wore off a lot more than any of the other plates I have. Okay, so going to this side, flipping it. Thing is when I do my mirror polishes, I am so picky about it. And a knife like this, I don't tend to care about being picky because it's not, while it's a prized knife and I'm going to love it, enjoy it, and use it and, you know, be happy to have it, it's not going to compare to, say, like a $1,200 or even a $300-400 pocket knife or something like that, where, you know, say something like this, where I want to make sure that mirror polish is perfect to the highest level of perfection, and then it's the highest level of sharpness, bite, everything. With something like this, and because something like that, I'm going to make sure it's perfect flat. No convexing at all, unless if I'm going for a convex edge. With something like this, I'm not going to care about it as much, which will lead to it not being as perfect as it could be as if I was. But this is looking beautiful. All right, technically, we can go to the next stone, But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back on this stone one more time just to flatten things out just a little bit, because I think we're going to take it to a polish. We're just not going to take it to anything crazy. We'll see how it feels afterwards, and if it's nice and sharp, we'll leave it. If it needs to, we will drop it back down. This is one way you can check your heat treatment and things like that. Like a lot of steels that are softer, they won't take a polished edge very well. It'll be slick. Now, some steels do that too, so you have to know what you're working with, right? Some steels are the same way, like they're gonna do that no matter what the heat treatment's like. But if you put a mirror edge on a blade that is likely to take a good mirror polished edge, and it wears off really quickly and it gets slick really fast, that's a huge indicator that that steel is soft, which is not a good thing. You want your steel nice and hard, not soft. Any companies that are arguing for toughness, you know, that's not like a hard use fixed blade or something. Any company that's arguing toughness is whether they know it or not, they're cheating you. Because edge retention is going to be the most important part. How sharp the knife gets, how well it holds an edge, its edge stability, how well it deburrs, all those things are gonna be more important than the toughness of your edge. And the harder it gets, the toughness goes up. Well, toughness goes down as far as like the impact, but the harder it gets, the more stability it has. So it does kind of equal toughness. Kind of like a diamond, right? If you take a diamond and you take a press and press it, it doesn't usually shatter. Usually it'll press into the steel, even though that's not tough at all. Diamonds have like almost no toughness. They're all hard. But when something's extremely hard, it also has more stability. But a lot of companies will make you believe that toughness is so important. Geometry is where the toughness comes from. The thickness of the blade. How many passes should you normally take on each side of the pocket knife when sharpening it? I know it varies by steel. Well, it doesn't vary by steel as much as geometry. So that there's no answer to that. That's like saying, how many passes do you have to do to mow a lawn, right? Well, you have to say, well, how big is the lawn? How big is the lawnmower? All these things. How aggressive is your stone, right? What grit are you starting at? That's a huge thing. And then how thick is the steel? Is it thick behind the edge or thin? If it's thin, it's going to go fast. If it's thick, it's going to take a long time. If you start with a medium grit stone, it's going to take you longer. If you start with a coarse stone, it's going to go faster. And then steels. Steels is another thing. Geometry is more important, but the steels, you know, they definitely play an effect. A higher wear resistant steel is going to take a little bit longer. But so there's no answer to that. It takes as many as it takes in order for your scratch pattern to reach the apex. Remember, your goal is for your scratches to go from the top of the bevel down to the apex, just like this. That's what you want it to look like under a microscope right there. So this is the idea. You're making little micro serrations. So however long it takes for this scratch to reach the apex, from the heel to the tip. So all of these, because at first it's only going to be at the top of the bevel and you have to work its way down. That's what people don't really understand too. Like they'll think that, okay, as soon as I get on the stone, it's reaching the entire bevel. No, it's not. It's going to hit the top of the bevel right up here when you go on the stone, and the scratches are going to have to work its way down the longer you sharpen to the apex, because you're cutting a new bevel in. But think about this, like your old bevel's like this, your new bevel's like this. You're gonna have to cut all this steel off around the edges in order to get down to the apex. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure my burr is flipped, and I'm going to work on this stone. This is the Neeves 400, which is basically a 1200 grit stone. So think of it as a 1200 in American standards or in grit standards. I think it's 50/40 micron, if that makes sense. Or no, sorry, 20/14 micron, my mistake. The last one was 50/40 micron. This is 20/14 micron. And then the next stone we're gonna use, it'll be 7/5 micron, meaning between 5 and 7 micron. This one's between 14 and 20 micron. So this won't be a polish. This stone would be a cloudy finish. So this would be the stone that separates the mirror polish from the medium grit. So you have your medium grit, you go up to your fine, which is what this is. This would be a fine grit. And then once you get to the fine grit, that is going to be the middle ground between you getting to a polish. You can't get to a polish without this stone, without a fine grit stone. You can't go from medium grit to mirror polish. You can't do that. It doesn't work. Not without spending like a week on the edge or on the stone. So in order to make sure this one will mirror polish, I have to make sure I do my due diligence on this one. Make sure that I, one, replace this scratch pattern with the old scratch pattern, because remember the old scratch pattern will be this stone. So I'm replacing it with these scratches, which is, you know, just basically cutting off any scratches that are deeper than this one and replacing it with the finer grit scratches, which will allow my mirror polishing stone to work. Doesn't work without it though. And now that my bevel is set, in the future, this is gonna go 5 times faster. Like the first sharpening you do on your knife is the one that takes the longest because you're cutting in a new edge angle and everything. And once you get up to stones this fine, you don't develop much of a burr. You can still develop a burr. I'm not saying you won't have a burr at all, but it's very, very tiny, and it does take a little bit of understanding what a burr feels like to feel it, because it is that small. Like I can definitely feel it, but it is small. This is looking beautiful. I'm gonna spend just a little bit more time to ensure my scratches are done. And then this next stone will get us to a polish and we will be good. Okay, let's get to the mirror polish. So now, since we moved through 7 stones, this would be the 6th stone. That's how we're getting to a mirror polish. You can't go to a mirror polish with 3 stones. You just can't. You have to go coarse, medium, fine, ultra fine, then like a mirror polish. Or at the very least up to ultra fine, you know, as the mirror polish. Haven says, most of the time, I don't like a mirror polish. Most of my knives get way too slick. Yep, but my Manix Rex 45 will hold it pretty well. Yeah, that's, you know, most steels are going to be that way. Some steels do very well with mirror polish. Some steels don't. It just depends on the steel, and it depends on a few factors too. Edge angle is very important. So if you want the best results of a mirror polish, you have to go with a low angle. All right, this feels so hard. I love these stones. This is like one of my favorite stones, even though this would not be a stone I would ever really recommend unless if you are really getting into sharpening, because the most important stones are your first 2 stones, your coarse and your medium grit. Those are the most important stones of all the stones that will ever be in your collection. But when you've had that and you got that down, then getting a nice, very hard stone. There's lots of different ones. You can even say some natural stones, ceramics. This is a diamond, but it's very, very hard. And these stones can work for a lot of other things rather than just polishing, which is why I love them. To me, they are very valuable. Oh, that's looking very, very good. Very mirror. I can see what we call so when you're going through the stone, sometimes your angles will change just slightly, and that will lead to little tiny imperfections that you see. And I can see a few. I'm not worried about it though. Like I said, this isn't something that I'm going to be taking, you know, I don't know. I guess it's not that I wouldn't do Instagram pictures or videos of it, but it's not something I care about being so beautiful like I would put on, you know, a super expensive pocket knife, because the reason why is because these get sharpened a lot more than a pocket knife. These get sharpened and maintained and honed constantly because you're constantly in the kitchen. You're constantly doing things with food. Now, they have the potential to stay sharp for a very long time if you have a good steel and you maintain it with a strop and with a hone. But you're still gonna break down the edge faster, especially if you have a few people in your household. Like if it's not just you. If it's just you, then yeah, maybe it might last a very long time. Especially if you're using your pocket knife for work, then yeah, maybe not. But also your pocket knife technically should have a superior steel. Not always, just depends on who you are and your chef knives. Like I have some chef knives that are, you know, like even this one. This one's a good steel. I would take this steel even on a pocket knife. But I prefer my pocket knife steels to be even better. Yeah, it's looking beautiful. We'll take a look at the mirror polish here in 1 second. We have just one more stone to get through. And then we're gonna check the sharpness. And like I said, if it's not up to my standards, with the mirror, I'm just gonna drop it right back down and we'll cover that polish up with a medium grit. All right, let's go to the last stone. This is approximately 5,000 grit. The last stone we just used was about 3,500 grit, 7/5 micron. This is 3/2 micron, which is about 5,000 grit. It's called the F1200 from the Neeves. This is the dragon stone, which is very, very expensive. Oh, I feel like there's something on my stone. Hang on. When you get to this fine, you can feel everything because the stone is so hard. There we go. But I, in many cases, don't like to go up this high either, unless if it's on certain steels and certain angles. Oh, that looks beautiful though. My burr's not big, so I don't really have to go backwards. There's like, it's almost non-existent right now because this is such a fine stone. When you flip the burr, that's because it's big and you don't want the fear of tearing it off. When it's as small as this one is, it's not gonna tear off. It, like I said, almost doesn't even exist. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at it before I remove the burr, even though it's a very, very tiny burr. Actually, we'll look at it after I dry it off. So what I'm gonna do now is do a burr minimization. So the idea of the burr minimization is I have metal particles at the very tip of my apex. They are sitting right at the tip of my apex, all over, just little tiny microfibers of steel. I want to get rid of them and clean off in between my serrations and all of that between this stone and my strop. So right now I'm going to do basically a few stropping passes on the stone, very gentle, the same angle I sharpened at, or at least as close as possible, but no pressure. The reason why you don't want any pressure is because the burr doesn't require any pressure to be removed, and adding pressure will make you change your scratch pattern. So these are very gentle. Now I'm gonna do just a couple forward passes. Now, this is a very fine stone, so I don't need to do very much for my burr minimization. If this was a 600 grit stone, I would have done that way more. Like I would have spent more time doing the burr removal, but I don't need to because it's such a fine grit. Now, this is a 0.5 micron. So we finished on 3/2 micron. Now we are stropping on 1 micron. And what this is doing is cleaning in between the microscopic serrations, getting rid of any debris that's in between them, and getting rid of any steel particles that are hanging on to the apex, revealing a perfect apex. Yeah, it's very sharp. All right, let's test it. So our goal at the beginning, if you rewind it back, this edge was slipping off of, even though it's brand new, it's never been used, it's fresh out of the box. I literally pulled it out of the box to do this. Haven't even cut anything with it yet. It was cutting cleanly through paper like a factory edge should, but it wasn't up to my standards because it would not cut through paper towel cleanly. It would slide off. So let's see. Look at this thing will cut S cuts. That's fucking sharp. To do that, like you can't do that unless if it's super sharp. We'll go all the way through on this one. Watch this. Like I said, guys, in order to do that, that knife has to be incredibly sharp. Not just sharp either. It has to have a perfect edge bevel. And the reason why I do the paper towel test is because it tells, sorry guys, my microphone just hit the thing. It tells you two things. One, you have a high level of sharpness, which is your edge angle. Your edge angle is about how sharp your edge is. Too high of an angle is a tough edge. A very low edge angle is very sharp. You want it right in the middle where, you know, it's tough. That's why I said 17 to 25, usually. You know, this depends on the knife. Sometimes lower, sometimes higher. But it also has bite. So it not only has the sharpness, but it also has the bite. So if a knife is really sharp with no bite, then it's gonna slip out of cuts. But if it's real sharp with a lot of bite, you get what we just seen, you know, the paper towel. Look at that. Yeah, that's damn sharp. So, yeah, I'm very happy with it. I'm gonna answer a couple questions and we will get out of here. I just wanted to sharpen this up live. It does feel like it has a good amount of bite. However, I do suspect that the bite will go away pretty quick. So, and because of that, I'm already planning on two things. Either one, to maintain it on a strop more often, or two, don't want to spend too much on the strop right now because I just got done sharpening it. So I don't want to, I just want to clean up. Ooh, that's really nice. I'll probably have to strop it a little bit more often to keep the bite. Or number two, I might have to drop the grit down to about 600 to 1200 grit and cover the mirror polished edge in the future. So we'll see. If the mirror polished edge holds really well, which I doubt it will, then we won't worry about that. But if it does wear off really quick and it starts getting slick, I'll just do a few passes on a 1200 grit, maybe a 600 grit, add some micro serrations, deburr, and have a new edge bevel, and it'll go really fast. That's what I mean. After your first sharpening, your bevel's set. So now in order to replace the scratch pattern or set a new edge bevel, it's gonna go really fast. So what is problem if my knife will get medium sharp but never get really sharp? There's no problem. It just depends on your standards. Everybody's standards are different. Depends on what you're cutting. Because I run a knife channel, I do definitely have a little bit higher standards. And I also, when I break down cardboard and things like that, when you've sharpened, or sorry, when you've used and cut with a very sharp edge, you almost never want to go back to not very sharp or medium grit sharp because it just passes through so much easier. Even food, right? Like having a sharp chef knife, the difference in your cuts and how your food is gonna come out is night and day. Like if I have a tomato right now, right? And I'm trying to cut it and it's mashing the tomato instead of cutting the thin slices, well now my sandwich is gonna have mushy tomato in it. So having a sharp edge can give you better results when you have a very, very sharp edge. Now, some people, that's not gonna matter. They're not gonna care as much. By the way, here, let's take a look at it. A lot of people are not going to care about it as much because it's not gonna affect them very much, or they just don't know. Most people don't even know how it affects them. They'll cut with a dull knife and think that that's how it's supposed to be. Knives are supposed to be like this, when they just don't understand that that's very low standards. Let's see here. My personal standards are as follows. I just need a working blade, but I do need a thick blade for batoning because I work military. Yeah, if you're in the military, if you're doing anything survival or anything to where you're prying, chopping, or doing hard use stuff, then yeah, you want thicker geometry. That's exactly what you want. What you don't want is soft steel in thick geometry. You want still hard steel with thicker geometry so that it's nice and tough and it holds an edge and takes a really good edge. A knife not getting screaming sharp can also just be the steel. Some steels don't take crazy edges. Yes, well, some steels, that's usually heat treatment. So some steels definitely get sharper than other steels, 100%. All steels have the potential to get very, very, very sharp. Some of them just don't hold the sharpness. or don't hold the bite, right? It could be one of the two. However, soft steels, yes, soft steels will nowhere near get as sharp as a hard steel with the same steel. Just for an example, like this steel, say AUS-10, VG10, say if it's 55 HRC, right? It's not gonna get nowhere near as sharp as if it was 60 HRC. All right, we're gonna do about 2 minutes of answering questions and we're gonna get the hell out of here. What's your solution to test a lock's ability to hold a knife securely and not fail? I do the spine wax test, but you know, I don't go crazy with that. Depends on the knife. So some knives have higher standards of lock strength and some have lower standards. So it just depends on the standard of the knife. Yes.
Sometimes the best test is research. Looking at other people's stuff online, seeing other people.
Yeah, that's very true, baby. Thank you. Yeah, like she said research. Watch other people's videos like mine who test them and to see. Because you might not want to ruin your knife or hurt your knife or do something bad to your knife. So watch somebody else do it to theirs to show you. That's why we do these videos, is to help you guys not have to fuck up your own shit. Just for stacks, I've been using flits. Man, it's just incredible. Thank you for your pro and passionate course. Anxious to see you tomorrow. Thank you, Frank. Oh, what just happened? Uh-oh. I don't know. Never mind, I just glitched. Listen, something bad is happening April 8th as I believe that God will come for the first people. Please accept the Lord into your heart. I don't want you to go to hell. Well, God bless everybody. Hopefully everybody does have God in their heart. With specialized machine, oh yeah, with an HRC test, yeah, you need a specialized machine. You can do an HRC test, but there's ways to do it yourself. So one, you can get a cheap tester from online, which is not accurate, but it's just a scratch test that takes a thing that's hard, and if it scratches the surface deep, then it's basically softer. But that's not very accurate. A proper HRC test, you have to send it out and you have to have it, it gets poked and they test how, you know, the puncture is. But at home, you can tell by sharpening if you know what steels feel like, but you have to have a level of knowledge on how steels feel on the stone, how well they sharpen, how well a burr removes. When you sharpen a few hundred knives, you are going to start getting the understanding of how a hard steel removes a burr and how a soft steel removes a burr, how well they hold bite. Different steels. Like me, I've sharpened every steel hundreds of times, so I have a good idea of how well this steel is supposed to perform if it's at a good HRC, because I've also had tons of them with soft HRC and they all have the same thing, and it's just observing patterns. Thank you, Todd. I appreciate it, brother. I like thin Japanese style knives, but the only Chinese kitchen knife company that has impressed me so far is Xingzhu. They come a long way and do a lot of collaborations. Yeah, I've had some of their stuff. They do good. SHANZU does good. VOSTEED does a really good job. I love them all. VOSTEED does a really good job. I'm actually very impressed with their 9CR steel. They have a 9CR Damascus. I actually have a little bit of burr right there because of that tip is, like I said, I didn't hit the apex very good right there. But yeah, no, Japanese does the best chef knives for sure, aside from the US. So it would say Japanese probably first. I would say US is second as far as the highest quality. Like if you want a high performance chef knife, and I mean high performance, Steve Kalari Customs. Steve Kalari Customs will give you whatever handle material you want. He'll give you whatever geometry you want. He'll give you the heat treat you want, the exact HRC you want, the exact steel. And that, when you can do that, when you get all of the above, my goodness. Oh my goodness. A lot of companies, they'll tell you like, oh, we won't go up that high to that high of HRC. He'll go as high as you want. All my fixed blades have passed the spine wax test, as they should. What do you think about 5CR? It's a cheap steel. It's a bottom of the barrel. I wouldn't recommend it steel. If it's on a chef knife, it's mediocre. I would say that it's barely acceptable, but slightly. So I would say it's fine for chef knives or kitchen knives because you're going to abuse them and beat them up, but don't expect them to stay very sharp for long. They'll get sharp, but they're not going to stay sharp. So I would say never accept it on a pocket knife. Never, ever, ever accept that on a pocket knife. The bottom of the barrel that I would recommend in 2024 from a pocket knife would be D2, 440C, 9CR. Anything right there, you're fine, or above. And that's just because, you know, unless if you're spending like $5-10 on a knife, right? But if you're going to spend $20+ on a knife, get a proper steel, right? Why would you want to get a shit steel for more money or for the same amount when you know you can get it elsewhere, the right stuff or better stuff? My favorite chef's knife I had made was ZDP 189 steel, heat treated 65 to 66 HRC. Love that thing. Yeah, I got a few knives in ZDP, no chef knives, but I have Japanese made knives. And I have some other overseas knives, ZDP 189, 66 to 67 HRC, and I got some 65 to 67. Yeah, that is a super steel when it's heat treated to that. So if it's heat treated softer, it's actually more of a budget steel or mid-grade steel. But when they heat treat it to that high of HRC, it turns into a super steel. So it goes from, like, say, cutting 300 feet of whatever, of cardboard or rope, to 1,000 feet or 1,000 cuts of rope. What about Kershaw's brand? What does that say? I can't read it. I'm guessing brand. Bro, you like that brand? Yeah, I like Kershaw. I think Kershaw does a good job. I have many videos on Kershaw. I think Kershaw is the best big box store brand. Not saying they don't have a lot of knives you can buy that are not going to be found in big box stores, because they do. They're actually Kai. So it's zero. Kai owns Zero Tolerance and Kershaw. It's the same company. Kershaw is just like they're more budget friendly, and Zero Tolerance is their high end knives. But yeah, Kershaw does a damn good job. Really good job. I recommend their USA made knives more than anything though. What's your sharpest edge from currently fixed angle sharpening system or hand sharpening by far? But no, not by far. I'm not gonna say by far. Hand sharpening's definitely led me to sharper edges, but it just depends, because there has been times where I've outperformed myself on fixed angle systems 100%. And then there's times where I seem like I outperform myself freehand. I have done edge retention tests with both, because remember, sharpness is one factor. Right? There's the highest level of sharpness. I can have the sharpest edge possible, but it will be so brittle, it doesn't matter, right? So what if it can cut the fabric of space if it won't hold an edge? So in order to have a proper edge, you want to make sure it has also the other factors. So, you know, I've gotten edges that are just so brutally sharp, you know, but like I said, they're not going to hold. So, you know, I've definitely done edge retention tests between fixed angled and freehand to see which one does better. And it's kind of flip of the coin. Sometimes my freehand does better. Sometimes the fixed angle does better. So I just, you know, it just depends. But freehand has a lot of other benefits to it, like being able to sharpen in the field, being able to hone and maintain your edge better. You have the ability to keep your edges going longer because you don't have to clip it into a fixed angle system in order to work on it or tune it up or anything like that. It's more therapeutic in my opinion. But hey, if you're not willing to learn freehand or just want to be able to have incredible edges until you learn freehand, get a fixed angle sharpener. There's nothing wrong with that. Get a fixed angle knife sharpener and get yourself the highest level of sharpness you can get, because that will basically, with very little knowledge, make you a pro. You can get professionally sharpened edges if you have something like this. If you have something like this, you can damn sure get a perfect edge. However, they're expensive and they do cost. They definitely cost a lot. So it's got to be up to you. What means more money? The time that it's going to take for you to learn freehand, or cutting that out and getting perfect edges right away. You will still have to understand sharpening to some degree, but you don't have to hold the angle. I don't know healing knives. Yeah, the Iridium's a good knife. I like the Iridium. It now comes in two different blade shapes too. That's the Kershaw Iridium. It's their new manual overseas made knife. They have a USA made knife that's kind of similar. It's called the Bel Air. That's also really good. For sharpening on the go, I keep some DMT credit card size diamond stones on the hand. How do you feel about those particular stones? I think they're great. I think that's a great idea. I recommend this just because it's pocket size. You can keep it in a bag, keep it in your car, whatever. You can replace the diamond plates. You can use this as a storage, you know, stash your weed in there. You got a strap. You have your angles already built in. So I don't have to, I can just literally just put the angle like this, drop down, and then hold that. And then it has a ceramic rod. So it has everything you need. And this is for serrations. Technically, it even has a thing for doing arrowheads. Not sharpening them, or maybe you can. Maybe you can put them in there and go like this. I don't think so, though. I think it's mostly just to like to screw them on and to glue them on. But anyways, this is a field sharpener, the Workshop Field Sharpener, linked down in the Neeves store. This is, in my opinion, the best field sharpener you can buy. But if you have just a couple little diamond plates, perfect. Use that. That gives you the strap and the ceramic too. So that's what I love about it. Jared, how do you mount worn clips on a sharpening system? I don't understand what you mean. You just clamp them in, just like anything else. Just clamp them in. If you're doing freehand, then you have to hold the angle all the way out to the tip. So like say if I'm going to go across the stone, I got to hold this all the way out to the tip, and you have to come off the stone. You don't want to go like this. A lot of people teach you to go like that. Don't do that. It's not going to work very well. You're going to have a lot of imperfections. What you want to do is go like this and lock your wrist and go all the way off of the stone until the tip touches the edge of the stone. Then go back. You can go just forward if you want, or forward and backwards, but you don't want to go like this or like this with a worn clip. You have to go straight across all the way out to the tip. That way you can get the edge bevel set from heel to tip, because any imperfections you'll be able to hit with the edge of the stone, because the stones are always going to have little imperfections. Knives are always going to have imperfections, and that cuts those out. All right. Thank you, Todd. I appreciate it, brother. I will DM you on Instagram after the stream and hook you up with the owner so he can send you a ZDP 189 Gayuto, if that's how you pronounce it, and maybe a few other models, maybe some in 14C. Awesome. I appreciate it. Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love to check them out. After a full sharpening like you just did, do you know if there's any toxic materials? So certain strapping compounds did, I don't know about anymore. Somebody I heard said, and I don't know how true this is, but they said that they stopped it and that they don't do that anymore, but they used to have aluminum oxide compound that could cause cancer. A lot of them are just fine, but all you do is when you're done strapping, clean it off. Rinse it off. If you're sharpening, you're going to want to clean it anyways. You don't want to, the biggest part is going to be steel particles and diamonds, right? You don't want diamonds in your throat. Well, I don't think diamonds will matter as much as steel particles, but either way, you don't want either one of them. So just rinse it off. Rinse it off, clean it off, you'll be just fine. You know, it's just like anything else, you know, when it's going to get messy, it's going to get dirty, so you're going to want to clean it off anyways. But not that I know of anymore. I think that that's been resolved now. But it used to be a thing. Do you make knives, or like what do you do? I test and review knives. Companies send me knives to test, to give them feedback and do reviews and show you guys. I test other gear as well: belts, boots, bags, flashlights, anything everyday carry basically. And then I teach knife sharpening. So I also review sharpening products. So I test sharpening supplies, test EDC products, test knives, and I teach knife sharpening. That's basically what I do here on this channel. Do you control the angle of the sharpening rod on both sides of the knife? Like if the tip and heel of the knife is sharpening symmetrically on both sides, do you control the angle of the sharpening rod? You're talking about a fixed...
There's like a reverb height difference.
So with a fixed angle knife sharpening system, once you lock it in, it's locked in. So you don't control anything. You just control moving it. That's it. You don't have to lift anymore, do anything like that. With big bellies, you want to let the stone tilt. I'm going to show you really quick. Make it easy.
It's not actually a readjustment of the angle, though.
I know. I'm just going to show him just so I can, because it'll only take me a second to do this. What? Oh, I don't know. I'm guessing he's talking about what you said, where to see if you're going to have to change angles or anything. So like, let's say this is the knife. We're going to clamp it in. I have it where I want. Bang, right there. It's ready to sharpen. Once I clamp it, make sure it's clamped good. Now I'm going to take my stone, make sure my rod holder goes right to there, right there, clamp it. And then I have a digital angle finder right here, but I don't care about that right now. So when I go around the belly, I'm going to let the stone, because you see how this goes at a turn, right? Let the stone tilt and lay flat. So it's hitting the bevel here, just like it was hitting over here. Don't try to leave it like this, where I'm not letting it tilt. Let it tilt that little bit to get to the tip. Never let the tip of the knife go past the center of the stone. If you do, you will regret it, because it'll come off of the blade and it'll round over your edge at the tip, and it will be a nightmare to get out. So take your time when you get to the tip, always stop. I sometimes stop as soon as the tip hits the stone. But with different angles and stuff, you just let it go. You whatever angle, because it's holding the angle for you, and you're trying to do the same angle from heel to tip. Now, here's the thing. With freehand, you have the ability to change that. Not with fixed angle knife sharpening. With fixed angle knife sharpening, you have to basically do whatever the angle is that you locked in. With freehand, you have the ability, say if you have a blade that's thinner here and thicker here, because a blade that's thinner here and thicker here, the bevel will go smaller to bigger. And in some cases, a lot bigger. Like literally it'd be like super small on one side and very big on the other. So if you're doing freehand, you can manipulate that with your wrist. I was talking about this kind of earlier. That's when you want to do dip or wrist dips. So as you're coming across the stone, say if, I want to lower the angle at the tip, I would hold my angle perfectly. Then once I get to the tip, I'll let the tip hit, but then I'll dip my wrist ever so slightly. And I mean, it's so subtle, you can't see it if I'm doing it, but I know I'm doing it. But yeah, with fixed angle knife sharpening, you just let it run. Whatever angle you set, that's the angle you're going to set it at. That's, what you got. Just leave it, let it go, let it roll. Hopefully that's what you were asking. I developed a little burr. I just want to knock it off really quick. Not that this edge is going to matter right now because I need to resharpen it, but at least it's sharp enough to cut somebody if I need to. Let's see here. All right, a couple more questions and then we're gonna get out of here. If you were to send you a custom EDC I make, would you be able to give me feedback? I'd love to see what I can improve. Yeah, just get a hold of me on Instagram. I do that all the time for companies. They send me knives all the time to not put on channel, but just to give them feedback. If you want it put on the channel, you can give it to me and I'll add it to the channel and give you feedback live. But yeah, just get a hold of me on Instagram. Don't know how I'm ending up here, but okay, it's cool. Well, thank you, Alexander. You can rewind. We did knife sharpening. We're about to get out of here now, though. I appreciate you joining for a moment. I zoned out while sharpening a knife, and now it's sharp enough to shave, but it's so sharp it doesn't cut coarser stuff like boxes because it's smooth. Yeah, it's not that it's too sharp. It's that you've made your teeth too small. So it backfires, which a lot of steel does. Some steel continues to have a lot of bite, and some steels get slick. So what you've done is you've basically taken your scratch pattern that was like this, and you've refined it so much that now they're too tight, and now there's no serrations left. They're just basically gone. So you want to lower your grit. Lower your grit, drop your angle. In order, if you want to go that fine, you're going to probably have to drop your angle with whatever steel you're using. But with a lot of steels, it just doesn't work on. You want a medium to fine grit or a coarse grit. Jared, did you get MT40 elastic ceramic from MT40 ceramic. I don't know what that is. I have ceramic stones from Spyderco, but I'm not sure what that is. Clamped in the middle, the tip will be a different angle on one side. But if the knife blade is not clamped in the middle, the tip, it just depends on the system. So some systems, yes, some systems the angle might be slightly different, but it's going to be as close as possible. And as long as it's held at the same angle every time you go past, you're fine. You know, if it's slightly different, okay. But yes, some systems, like say if the system's a small sharpening system, you might have some weird things like that. Or say if the knife is too small for a very big system, you might, you know, actually that shouldn't matter, but yes, you might have some, if you can't clamp it in a good area, say right here, and say if you have to clamp it back here or right here or something like that, you might have a little bit of difference in the angle, but it's nothing you should worry about. Clamp it as good as you can and, you know, pick the angle and run with it. It'll be fine. If there's a little bit of difference, it's not that big of a deal because you're still going to cut in the same angle at least every pass you do. So at least it's going to be consistent. It might not be consistent from heel to tip perfectly, but it'll be consistent as far as, you know, whatever the difference is will continue being the same difference. Any plans on doing a scale switch video on the Manix 2 lightweight? I want to get, yeah, possibly. As soon as they get here, I haven't gotten them yet, but as soon as they get here, if you want to see a good Manix, well, it's not the lightweight, but Metal Complex has a good Manix scale swapping video that's really good. It's not the lightweight, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be, you know, as close as it is possible. So you'll get what you need out of that video. All right, guys, I appreciate you guys joining me. This was, like I said, just a quick one to do a quick sharpening. If you're just joining, rewind it and check out the full video. We sharpened up a knife. I tried to teach as much information about freehand as possible in a little video like this. Yes, there's tons more information you can learn. I have an entire playlist of sharpening videos. I do sharpening videos constantly. We do have a membership. Tomorrow we are doing a giveaway to the members. So if you do join the membership, you will be in a live giveaway. We're going to give away some quality pocket knives. Not sure exactly which ones we're going to do, but we always give away good shit. So last week, or the last giveaway, I think the first place knife was like 300, 400 bucks or something. Anyways, we have a huge giveaway coming up for everybody to join. You do not have to be a member, so stay tuned for that. Hit the bell so you get the notifications because this is a massive giveaway. We're giving away thousands of dollars and stuff. It's basically 20 knives and a $300 and something chest to hold the knives. So you're going to get a whole display case filled with knives, and I'm going to add in something extra in there. So that's coming up. Watch for the live, because in the live, we're going to talk about exactly when the video is going to upload. The video will upload. Just leave a comment, whatever I say, and then we will pull the names a week later. If you're a member, we do the lives, you know, while we're live, or we do the giveaways while we're live. But thank you guys. Work hard, stay tough. Until next time, peace.